Ani, good evening and welcome to a council meeting for a public hearing. I'd like to call this meeting to order and I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. Dave and Dean. All those in favor? Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No, seeing none. Matt, I'd like to let you know that the applicants are here tonight for the first one, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know you can't see. Okay,
Can
I know
hear
you
me
can't
now?
see them.
Thank you.
All right. So this evening, there is a public hearing scheduled for two zoning bylaw amendments. The first one is application number ZBA 24-13FR, and it's with Andrew and Maria Katulka. Is that how I said? Thank you. Thank you. And the second application is number ZBA 24-14FR, Jeans Hardware Incorporated. So the Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before council decides whether or not to pass a zoning bylaw amendment. The public hearing serves two purposes. First, to present to council and the public the details and background to the proposed rezoning. And second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before council makes its decision. Monsieur Dumont will provide a summary of the applications. From there, the applicant will be requested to make a presentation in person or virtually, followed by questions from the public virtually or in person, of course, either in favor or against the proposal. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the director of planning, or anyone giving presentation. The zoning bylaw amendment will then be considered by council later this evening. Monsieur Dumont, would you please advise how the public was notified?
Thank you. So notice of public hearing was sent by the municipal office and was sent by mail to the assessed owners within 120 meters of the property subject for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application this evening. The notices were sent on May 30th, 2024, being over 20 days prior to this evening's meeting. Included with the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and a key map showing the location of the site.
Thank you. I now declare this portion of the hearing to be a public hearing to deal with application number ZBA 24-13FR, Andrew and Maria Katulka. Monsieur Dumont, would you please summarize the purpose and the effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to this application?
Thank you. So I'd like to start by saying that the subject lands are surrounded by a mix of waterfront residential uses and crown land. Key Largo is a private road that is approximately 780 meters in length and connects to Shaw Road, which is publicly maintained by the municipality of French River. The site has water frontage on Trout Lake. The adjacent properties to the east and west of the waterfront residential use, there's approximately 22 waterfront properties along the shoreline in that area. I did conduct a site visit, so part of the process that I take on from my end is not only looking at the provincial legislation as well as our local policies, that being the official plan and the zoning bylaw, but part of this process is conducting site visits and providing context to those policies. So I just wanted to confirm that I have been to the site to understand the site in itself, which is part of my justification and rationale, which I'll talk to shortly. So now with respect to the purpose and intent of the application that's in front of council this evening. So the Sudbury East Planning Board received an application for a zoning bylaw amendment application. So the subject property right now as it is zoned waterfront residential under the current bylaw for the municipality of French River. The subject lands currently are going to contain the waterfront residential zone. However, what we're looking at doing, or what I put forth to council, is a regulation, and that regulation is to implement a 2-story accessory structure where no two-story accessory structure is permitted on a waterfront residential lot. Now I'm going to give you some context to that because a lot of people might just assume, hey, two-story structure is going to be really, really high. And so, your perspective on things can be different. So I'm going to give you the context to the cross-section that I did receive as part of this process. And how that kind of factors in how the municipality's bylaw is versus other bylaws. So the overall height, to give you perspective on the structure itself. So overall height is grade and then to the peak of a gable roof. So the overall height for this structure is 6.58 meters, which is equivalent to just under 22 feet, exactly 21.58 feet. So I just wanted to give that context. I know two-story, but the actual height of the structure is a total of 21.58 feet to the peak, to the grade. So the second level is to be deemed as a loft. The proposed, but like the whole purpose of the loft is for storage purposes, and that's the information we received as part of this process from our office. The proposed lot to be rezoned to have this regulation currently is to give you again context of the size of the lot, it's 0.43 hectares. So if you convert that hectares to acres is just over an acre, and square feet, that's about 46,000 square feet. So it's quite most waterfront lots are undersized, but that's okay. In this particular case, just the lot area in itself is generous compared to most existing lots that existed prior to the bylaws. So I wanted to also provide that context too. So now diving into the policies, I'm just going to touch on a few policies, specifically waterfront policy area and the official plan. The implementing why we have a zoning bylaw, and this is a perfect example, is the zoning bylaw shall specify the uses permitted in all the planning area and contain regulations. And what are those regulations? What's the purpose of zoning bylaw under the OP? It's the use of the land, the type of construction, height, size, floor area, character, spacing, location. So exactly the whole purpose and context of this, this presentation this evening. Some other factors are elevation of the building openings, percentage of lot area, which I'll talk to later on. So these are all the factors that kind of go into implementing zoning bylaw that need to be discussed. So in summary, I've provided a recommendation to council to support the proposed accessory structure, two-story, and I'll provide a little bit more details on why. So I do note that with respect to the official plan, the proposal does meet and conform to the intent of the plan. So moving on to the zoning bylaw, this is where the site visit helps significantly in understanding the site itself. So the depth of the lot is very generous, and it's approximately 291 feet or 89 meters. The proposed detached garage is to be in the rear yard. So what does that mean? It's at the back of the property. So that's where it's going to be situated. That's where the proposed site location is. It's going to be at the rear yard, which is significantly elevated in relation to the existing topography near the shore. So basically, the water is here, and this is where the road, the Key Largo private road is, and the garage is located at the back, way up here. And as you go further into the property, the existing dwelling's way much lower, and then it much lower for the boathouse. So just to give you context of how steep the topography is. So the detached garage will be approximately 29 meters from the road. So the owners, when we conducted the site visit, the owner has started to clear the vegetation, mature pine trees in the rear yard, which is totally fine. The existing single detached dwelling is in the center of the property where the land is not so steep. So there's an existing single dwelling on the property. Due to the proposed location, elevation of the site, and the existing vegetation buffering surrounding the neighboring properties, staff can support the proposed two-story accessory structure. The detached garage would not have a negative impact on the waterfront character, specifically the neighboring property. So when I look at neighboring properties, I'm looking at the east and I'm looking at the west. 4879 East Shaw Road and 4879 Seashaw Road. So I'll touch on that just briefly. 4879 Seashaw Road has an existing detached garage also in the rear yard, which would characteristically be similar to the proposed site. If not, their existing garage might be slightly higher, but it is there. So staff notes that the detached garage would otherwise appear to comply with all other applicable development standards. So what do I mean by that? I touch on lot coverage. So the lot coverage, to give you perspective on how you calculate lot coverage, as we know, the site is just over 46,000 square feet. So you take all the existing buildings on the property. So there's a boathouse and there's an existing dwelling unit, and you take the square footage of that and you divide that by the lot size. And to give you perspective on things, the lot coverage as it exists today without the detached garage is 2.65%. 2.65%. So what the waterfront residential lot says, you have a legal right to build up to 15%. So I'm just giving you again context on what is there today. And once you do add the detached garage in terms of the footprint of that garage, it's significantly going to still be and remain under the 15% threshold for lot coverage for existing buildings. So I just wanted to share that perspective. Now, as I noted, with respect to my explanation, staff recommends that the proposal is appropriate development for the area and that the zoning bylaw is being maintained and conforms to. Now, as part of the process, as I do with all the applications, I circulate for comments to agencies. What does that mean? So I'm circulating to internal departments with your municipality, French River, and I'm also sharing key maps and an explanation of this prior to this meeting to other agencies that would have an interest in it. And all that information comes back into my report. So with respect to French River specifically, all departments within the municipality of French River had no issues or comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw application. Now, with respect to the neighboring properties, as I noted earlier, we circulate a maximum 120 meters. And part of that process, we did receive a phone call and subsequently a letter from the neighboring property, who is also participating and listening on this public process this evening. So that is David Bronczewski. I've had I had one conversation with him, and then I did have the opportunity to read his letter and his remarks. So I will speak to those remarks. I made some notes on the letter prior to the meeting. So I'll touch on all the points. First point, too tall and too large. Again, I'm just quickly summarizing these points to council and just providing perspective here. Too tall, too large. Again, from a lot coverage perspective, I've already explained that the existing property itself is 2.65%. So there's a lot of room for increasing that and still being, applicable to the current standards and conforming to those standards. So there's no issues from a land use perspective from the scale, like too large. Now, too tall. Again, I touched on the fact that, in reality to the situation, why we're here this evening is how the owners designed the detached garage. So the owners provided cross sections, front elevations, rear elevations, side elevations from a BCIN designer, CR design. So because how it's designed, we have to adhere to the bylaw, and because of that design, it's considered a two-story. And yes, the bylaw does not permit two-story, but that's why we also have these tools. The Sub-East Planning Board has these tools to make exceptions, and those exceptions also have to, conform to the official plan and zoning bylaw, which I already talked to. So I just wanted to confirm that, too tall. And in reality, I already shared the perspective, my personal professional opinion on this, that if you're just to take total height of the structure, it's 21.6, which is reasonable and appropriate. I can understand the circumstances were different in the proposal, but that's not the case with this particular design. So I just wanted to share that. So that's the first point. Second point, further intensification. Two-story accessory structure is a bad precedent. Further intensification, again, Intensification is deemed on everything's based on lot coverage at the end of the day. The facts are the facts. There's an existing boathouse, an existing dwelling, and they're proposing a garage which is 7.32 meters by 9 meters, which will still be well below what's allowed legally in terms of buildable area of the area. So it doesn't have a negative impact on intensification, in my professional opinion. Third point, additional density. Again, I'm just processing the information that I'm processing here. We do have other departments, and if there's any concerns or complaints with the use of the property, this is not part of this process. It's been clear from day one that the additional loft is for storage purposes. Now, I will make it clear to the owners if that does change. Basically, there's a building department, bylaw department, and that would be the first step. If there's any different use that's being proposed, that would be separate from our department, and then would subsequently then come back to our department. So for now, I am processing what has been brought and shared to our office, which is storage purposes for the loft. And the other point was the boathouse as an existing dwelling on the unit. Again, if there's concerns, I would advise the neighbor to contact bylaw to further investigate that. It has no relation to what I'm processing in that. So that's the fourth point. The fifth point was the original grant of land from the Crown has a condition. Again, we have to understand why we're here this evening. So we're here for a land use matter under the Planning Act, specifically the official plan and zoning. So that's my focus primarily with the information providing council this evening. So that the fact that the Crown, there could be a condition of rights, that has no impact on the purpose and intent of why we're here this evening. That's a separate process. If there's any concerns or questions relating to that, I would advise the neighboring property to contact the Crown to further investigate that. And now in terms of soil erosion and drainage issues, again, if there's any concerns with soil erosion and log grading and drainage, that's separate from our process. That would be part of the building department process, where that's part of the building permit processing. So if you have any concerns or questions, that would be redirected to building services pertaining to that process. Now, with respect to the hand sketch being incomplete because it does not show a septic system, again, in terms of being incomplete, the sketch is deemed complete. It does show the existing structures above ground, above grade. If there's any issues with sub-district health unit, again, there shouldn't be, because this is used for storage purposes and it is a garage. Again, sub-district health unit would be involved, as well as building department. I would just focus maybe having a conversation with building department if there's any further questions on that, but has no impact. Again, no impact on the purpose of why we're here this evening. Now, in terms of the eighth point, adverse to quiet enjoyment of casting shadows. Point 8 and 9 is about not having a shadow study. At the end of the day, I did conduct a site visit. Understand shadow studies when they're required, when they're not required. Again, I don't think it's, in my professional opinion, appropriate in this particular case. Why is that? The lot is 300 feet deep. The detached garage is being located at the rear. So characteristically, the neighboring property to the, I think I may have my directions, but east has a garage also located in the rear yard. And with respect to David's property, their existing dwelling and other structures, again, are down here. So if you're building your garage way up here and there's no structures around, there's no impact on shadow and sun when your enjoyment of your property is in the middle of the property and the water's further down. So it has no impact. If anything, it's significantly higher. So I just wanted to provide my perspective on again, the use of the property. Detached, that's why we have a bylaw. Detached garages are located in the rear for specifically for this particular case, where enjoyment is not impacted, in my professional opinion, for those reasons. And that's why I didn't impose a shadow study as part of this process. And then lastly, there's two conditions that were brought forth by the neighboring property owner. One was restricting on the restriction on taking down trees. It is private property. So if there's any further concerns at the end of the day, I won't be imposing that because again, it's out of my jurisdiction. It's private property. If the owner has the ability to cut down trees, they have the ability to cut down trees. If it was on Crown land, then they would have to reach out to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry with respect to that. So it's private lands that we're dealing with. And the second condition that there be more just insurance on like bylaw coming out to ensure that the use doesn't be converted over time, you know, because we're dealing with storage purposes, and the concern is if storage then changes over to a dwelling unit. There's other measures that would be required from a building department perspective if that's the case, and I won't be imposing a condition with respect to that. We do have a complaint process in place, so if you feel, or if anyone feels that there's any, you know, issues, you would contact building and bylaw, and they would further, again, there's these departments for a reason, and it's their responsibility and obligation to follow through on those complaints. So that would be the proper channel should you wish, or should you have any concerns in the future on the intended use of this detached garage. So again, the bylaws being presented this evening is to permit a two-story structure from a land use perspective, and I've provided my professional opinion on the matter. So all in all, coming back around, just addressing those points in the remarks in the letter. From my perspective as a professional, the application for zoning bylaw is consistent with the provincial legislation, meets the intent of the official plan, and conforms to the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw for the municipality of French River, and therefore can be supported from a planning perspective.
Thank you, Monsieur Dumont. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation or address? You don't have to. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? If so, please go to the microphone, identify yourself with your address so that the clerk can make. No, that's how it goes with public, because we have. Madam Clerk? Sure. Well. Press the button. You have to press the button. Identify yourself.
My name is Trevor Wilkinson. I'm on Trout Lake.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about this. And I don't know, but I heard the word Shaw Road. But my understanding is Trout Lake is a fairly enclosed lake with only one outlet for water. And in my history of being there since about 1958, everybody's been concerned about pollution stuff in the lake itself.
Right, so how would this application impact?
Well, it's on it's on Trout Lake, right?
No,
So
well, the building, it will be on top of the lot. It's.
I understand, but from what's been described to me, because I haven't seen pictures or anything like this, and I didn't know about this particular meeting and stuff like that, that anything that's referenced here is going to be referenced in future for every development on Trout Lake. As as much as I see everything being developed, and right. So my concern,
Thank you.
And there's been serious concerns about environmental stuff that we've had to live through. And as you said, there's no was it the ministry that takes care of septic tanks and field beds and all that kind of stuff?
Public health takes care of that.
Yeah, okay. There's been no report as I understand it, we have to do something else to find out about it. So my concern would be and maybe he can answer that, it has, what he's prescribing here has no impact on the future of other buildings on Trout Lake
As far as zoning is
As-
concerned, no.
as far as zoning and,
This is a zoning bylaw amendment. If anything to do with septic tanks or environmental studies and stuff like that is dealt with. Matt?
Yeah.
uh,
So just to address, just for information purposes, so I know I fully understand Trout Lake. I understand your perspective on Trout Lake. Been there from day one. So we have to understand that what's the purpose this evening? So the purpose is the owners want to build a detached garage. That's all this
Sorry?
comes down to. So there's no impact from a septic perspective. Again, we're not dealing with a dwelling unit. We just have to understand the information. It is a detached garage. And so there's no impact from a septic perspective, environmental perspective. There isn't. If it was a different proposal, it'd be a different process. So just wanted to share that from you. And then in terms of notice, so just to, I know for educational purposes, the reason you didn't receive notice is because if you take the subject property under the law, it says like for these types of applications, you have the requirement is 120 meters. So obviously, like I said in my presentation, it's just obviously Shaw Road's a very long road. I conducted my site visit, so there's 22. Obviously, there's more than 22 waterfront properties, but in this pocket of area specifically, there's only 22. And if the lots have anywhere from 100 to 200 to 300 feet of frontage, well, there's only gonna be a handful of people, which at the end of the day, the neighboring properties on the east and west would have, if they're going to be impacted negatively, they would have a right to voice their concerns and remarks to why, if anyone's going to be impacted through this process. But I just wanted to share that from a notice perspective. It is 120 meters, which why you didn't get a notice on this. And secondly, that we're not dealing with dwellings and septics because it's not required as part of detached garage.
I was trying to give the septic tank one because I'm sort of speaking off the cuff here because I didn't know anything about what was going on here. But if you take Shaw Road, I don't know if Shaw Road has two entrances or whatever to get through Shaw Road. But I know the road that I live on that goes from Delamere Road is when you say, did you say 120 meters or 200 meters or something like that you give notice to?
120,
120.
123 or something like that.
There's been, my understanding is that there's been applications in the past, which is on Delamere Road or Delamere near Owl's Nest. And I'm way further in than 120 meters.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the application tonight. You got to focus your comments on the application tonight.
Well, he's representing the department that's making the representation here. And he's addressed a couple of issues that aren't directly related to this, which was got to do with notice. And I'm going is some of us that live at the end of a road that, and I don't know if Shaw Road has but so that's why I'm concerned is that my concern comes is things happening without people knowing.
However, sir, with all due respect, for this application, notice was given properly in accordance to the law. Okay, so that's what we're discussing tonight. If you have overall problems, you can discuss, it's another avenue, but for tonight's application, we're dealing simply with that. All right, and does any other I see David, did you have anything you would like to address? I think you're on mute, David. So if you're trying to speak, oh, there he goes. Okay.
There. I apologize for not being able to attend in person. I've come down, unfortunately, with what I hope is just a 24-hour flu. Otherwise, I would have been there. But no, I mean, I'm clearly disappointed with the comments of Matt with related to our concerns. I appreciate that he's coming from a planning perspective and that sort of thing. So really, I mean, I really have nothing else to say.
Thank you, David, and I hope you feel better. Members of council, are there any other members of, members of, okay. Council, any comments? Seeing none. If there's no further questions, then I declare this public hearing to be concluded. Now, it's now in order for council members to make a motion and for council to consider the application. So I would need a mover and a seconder at any end, David.
It is duly moved and seconded that bylaw 2024-27 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-23 as amended, Andrew and Maria Katuka, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare this public hearing to be concluded. The zoning bylaw amendment, it will, please be advised there's a 20-day appeal period during which time any person or public body may, no later than 20 days after the day of that be given of written notice, this needs to be rewritten, as required by section 3418 of the Planning Act is completed. Appeal to the Ontario Lands Tribunal by filing with the clerk of the municipality a notice of appeal, setting out the objections to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objections, accompanied by the fee prescribed under the Ontario Lands Tribunal. During this period, no building permits may be issued or other work commenced. All right. So for your section, you're all done. Thank you. Yeah. Matt, the applicants have expressed their gratitude to you for the work that you've done. All right. Sure. Can you go to the microphone? Yeah, I know. I know. No, that's okay. No, don't worry about it. No. All right. Have a good evening. Okay, so let's move on to the second application. So I declare this portion of the hearing to be a public hearing to deal with application number ZBA 24-14FR Jeans Hardware Incorporated. Monsieur Dumont, will you please summarize the purpose and the effects of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application?
Thank you. So Sudbury East Planning Board has received an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. So the subject property is presently zoned commercial community under the current bylaw for the municipality of French River. The subject property is proposed to, again, in this instance, maintain. So we're proposing to maintain the current zone, which is commercial community. However, there'll be a special commercial community zone. And that, what's the purpose behind that? It's to be implemented to permit an additional use, and that additional use is self-storage. So you have the commercial community zone, it has all its existing uses on it, and we want to take a new use and add it to those existing uses, which is a self-storage. To give you a little bit of context, the proposed lot to be rezoned is approximately 1.73 hectares in lot area with a frontage of approximately 84 meters on Highway 64, and it already contains a Noelville self-storage. Also, that's very important to understand as part of this process. And also the history on it. 2 years ago, Sudbury East Planning Board facilitated several development applications, and the intent then was to there's one severance application and a zoning bylaw. So it's B1722, meaning 2022. The purpose of the severance application then was to sever the abutting lands and add it to this property. So then they they severed 1.2 hectares of land and added it to 192 St. David Street South, the property that we're talking about this evening. And so once we took that property back in 2022 and added to 192 St. David Street, the property then became much larger in lot area, and the frontage maintained because we just took land from the back from the adjacent property owner and added it to the current. So when we were doing that process, when we were doing the lot addition, adding lands to the existing property, the intent then was also to do a zoning bylaw amendment application to ensure that once the lands were consolidated together, that it would be under one zone. So to this day, it is under one zone. But there was a shared oversight with respect to the self-storage. The self-storage was supposed to be on that zoning bylaw. So just wanted to share you the history because it's very important going forward to council this evening. So it's just a technical housekeeping item that needs to still go through the process on this. And it's definitely defined now in a regulation, which is special provision to have that additional use of self-storage to the existing Noelville self-storage property. So that's pretty much everything. It's pretty straightforward and simple. I'm open to any questions or comments with respect to the purpose of this. And in terms of agency comments, again, we circulated to the neighboring properties on both sides of Highway 64 within 120 meters radius. We did not receive any, in this particular case, we didn't receive any comments or concerns from neighboring property owners. And with respect to the departments of the municipality of French River, had no issues or comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw. And I'm open to any further questions on this. This is just more of like a housekeeping item and just recognizing it so they can proceed with further development of a self-storage on the property.
I know the applicant's not here. Any questions from the public with regards to this one? Any questions from council? Since there's no questions, then I declare this public hearing to be concluded. So now it's time for council to make a motion. Moved by Dean and Bob.
It is moved and seconded that bylaw 2024-28, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-23 as amended, Gene Hardware Inc., be read at first, second, and third time and finally passed.
All those in favor? Thank you. Please be advised that there is a 20-day appeal period during which time any person or public body may, no later than 20 days after the day that the giving of written notice as required by Section 3418 of the Planning Act is completed, appeal to the Ontario Lands Tribunal by filing with the clerk of the municipality notice of appeal setting out the objections to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objections, accompanied by a fee prescribed under the Ontario Lands Tribunal. During this period, no building permits may be issued or other work commenced. I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Roger and Renee. All those in favor? Thank you.